Ulitin mo,
Dundee.
si Jeanette ay
Yeah,
ano?
one of the 8 cities of Scotland now. 8. Dunfermline was made a
Which
city
is the
just
Queen.
this year because of the Platinum Jubilee.
Jeanette, asawa
So
ni
yeah,
Jay.
one of the 8 cities of Scotland.
Asawa ni
Started to
Jay.
transfer to Buckingham Palace from
Not huge, but really
Balmoral
interesting city at the moment.
to
Dundee, going through a real regeneration. Down in the waterfront, as the cortege enters the town, it'll go through a couple of roundabouts, then it'll turn right along the Kingsway. But if it went straight ahead over the hill and down to the waterfront, it would arrive at the new Victoria and Albert Museum, which is opened in Dundee 5 or 6 years ago now, and has really sparked a process of regeneration. Almost in the way that the regeneration of the Albert Dock did in Liverpool. Things spread out, other businesses move in.
How much is made in Croydon these days, and how much in Dundee? Maybe an open question, but.
To return to the Paddington Board.
Exactly. Not just marmalade jam. I was talking about the soft fruit industry in Angus earlier on, and as a consequence of that, there's a big jam
Queen
industry.
Elizabeth
There was also a jute
coffin.
industry. The jute mills were a huge employer historically in Dundee, and then the third J, journalism, jam, jute and journalism. It's the home of D.C. Thompson publications, who published the Courier, but more famously the Beano, the Dandy, computer games, technological innovations.
Be an outpost of the London.
Indeed. That I was talking about, and this is Dundee.
Does Dundee have anything to do with North Sea oil and energy?
Well, the kind of home of North Sea oil was Aberdeen, so 65 miles up the road. Long after his time, of course, but this road was named in his memory and is the kind of the peripheral road of Dundee.
And there's people clapping, people taking photos, quite a lot of people clapping.
Aba, hindi ko alam kung sino yun. Maraming ulapit kay Bala-Bala. Ay, hindi. Anong pangalan?
And a continual stream. I mean, this has been...
So from Dundee going to
stood, to your point,
Edinburgh.
Stand, and they are only going to get the briefest
yung kapatid na si
slowing
Vilma.
down a little, but they're still getting a fairly
Si
brief
Tita
glimpse.
V. Uta.
You'll appreciate this is a 170-mile journey that we're trying to cover today, so the odd glitch along the way, I'm afraid, is to be expected. But look, just one flower stem on the windscreen of that car. Someone's thrown flowers. Let's hear the applause.
look at the people.
Sige kung ganun at wala na bang ibang marites.
Yes, I mean, we are talking certainly thousands of people.
This is the start.
Turned out.
Yes.
Ay, kasi may antibiotics ako, madali ako antukin.
Around the outskirts of Dundee before the cortege are moving towards Perth, so plenty of space to watch. If you're looking at
2:30 pa lang, galing kami sa palengke, kaya medyo
Dundee
napagod.
city itself begins really, the conurbation begins on the bottom of the screen there, the houses that you see there, and it moves up the hill and the city kind of covers that area.
Ay, maigi.
And the route overall, Martin, that we were talking about at the start of the day, I mean, today's focus is Balmoral to Edinburgh. Elements of the route will have been chosen to allow people to come out from various towns.
Ay, anong balita dyan sa kabilang bahay?
As many people as possible, I suppose, the opportunity to do what exactly these people
Diyan sa kabila, kinakakan dito.
This is not about necessarily taking the fastest
Kinakakan
route.
dito.
It's about selecting a route and going through appropriate places that there's perhaps a real connection.
Yeah, I think so, to an extent. I mean, they could have altered the route and made it a longer journey to deliberately pass through other towns on the way down. They bypassed quite a lot. But what they have done is taken a route that takes them through some of the cities. If they'd gone on a more direct route through the the Cairngorms down through Glenshee to
Straightforward reasons, they simply didn't want, as they put it, other road users to have any problems once the cortege had passed through. So that is why, expressing how honoured he is to be made Prince of Wales, because of course it wasn't automatic.
Programme about the fact that opinion polls would suggest that Scotland is not quite as supportive of the monarchy as other parts of the United Kingdom. But the scenes we are seeing today would belie that. We are seeing hundreds of thousands of people lining the streets to catch just a brief glimpse of the hearse flame.
Yes, I mean the Scots Charles, did they feel as affectionate towards him? And the general view was, you know, they were very impressed by the speech he'd made, and they think that he's a worthy successor. So time will tell.
And it is important, I think, isn't it, that the Queen, her coffin will come here to Edinburgh. There will be a service at St Giles Cathedral tomorrow, attended by senior members of the royal family, and then an opportunity for people to come through St Giles and see the coffin themselves as the Queen lays at rest there. For this to be happening in Scotland, to make sure that Scotland is included in the ceremony that is involved in saying goodbye to Queen Elizabeth feels
To Balmoral, she felt very much at home there. So for her, Edinburgh, St Giles in particular, with which she was very, very...
Is that fair to say? And look...
This is Edinburgh.
I was sitting in the Royal Mile fringe, and if anybody's been to the fringe, you know that was fire-eaters, stilt walkers, everybody out promoting their act, and it's noisy, there's hustle, there's bustle. What a change today, still busy, but what a change of mood in that same very short stretch of road.
And we are a little way off the Queen's coffin arriving in Edinburgh, but our correspondents there telling us that people started queuing very early this morning, and these images tell that story, don't they?
Commonwealth, and also remembering the Queen. Lots and lots of people.
Queen consort
Buckingham Palace.
just leaving the palace. She went in an hour or two ago. I slightly lose track of time now, but there were big cheers certainly as she was driven slowly into the palace, and now off to other areas. The new king, of course, we know, has a very busy afternoon of lots of meetings with particular reference to the Commonwealth. He's got a lot of meetings
Buckingham
with the
Palace.
commissioners, with the Secretary General of the Commonwealth, and he has a number of meetings with religious leaders as well. So King Charles
Very patriotic kaya ang patriotic ang
As I was saying, the first line is saved the Prime Minister. And at the end of Queen Victoria's reign, and George V, who was the Queen, wanted a way to honour his own father, Edward VII, the great grandfather of the Queen. And so that's when the institution started, and the lying in state was originally just for a day or so. Now it's going to be, what is it, a day, 24 hours in Scotland, her life of racing. I think one of the secrets of her success and her meaning to people was that, and as we've said so many times, there we're looking. She was in a system that's more important than any one individual, and she worked so hard to make the royal family.
This will be a slightly more emotional monarchy, and they mean that in a good way. The fact that he and his wife very early.
Well, in view of the huge popularity, I think that's a natural reaction to the situation, but the way in which King Charles has already reached out to people with 2 walkabouts, he's taken this private initiative to try and get his sons back together closer, certainly in public.
Yes.
These all show an activist king. Yes, he's had a long time to think about it, but he's jumped straight in, actually. And I think, I think it's fair enough to speculate the coronation is going to come much quicker than it did last time when we had the coronation. It took a long time in 1952 to 3, nearly 18 months, because they hadn't quite worked out the significance of
When you
television.
look at the vehicle, you think that is the Queen, that is the late Queen, and that is poignant and sobering.
It is worth
Or London.
I
It's a
mean,
moment of history, isn't it? I think,
isn't it?
you know, for all of us, none of us have seen this before, very few of us.
But there's a real kind of family atmosphere here, as you've got young babies, old people, dogs, you name it. Generations have come out and they're standing very patiently, very quietly, waiting for the cortege to arrive without any sense of selfishness, trying to grab their own spot. It's very, very friendly, and it's very, very somber. People are, you know, standing, reflecting.
Has touched our lives.
Look
And
at Edinburgh.
that's what the people of Edinburgh
It's
are
the
gathering to
Edinburgh.
mark now.
Yes, and actually, Sean, just picking up briefly on Robert's Ireland point, I mean, you think of those images today of the Queen shaking hands with some of those politicians.
That's right.
I mean,
Wow.
images that
Yun lang
previous
din po kasi
people
no yan.
couldn't have
These
imagined
images.
witnessing, and that's
Yes, exactly.
to Robert's point. That's the role that she played in that.
And it carries weight a symbolic weight, and the Queen brought with her a sort of dignity and held now as a fact.
In those political conversations in particular, but we won't.
At
Also,
last.
I think it's when you look at those pictures there, you have that great sense of ordinary places seeing extraordinary things. You know, when you see back gardens and shops and front, you know, people going about, and then there's this cortege going through. I think there's something about that that's very moving. Just to see the sheer history going through your front door and people coming out to see it, and they'll say they were there and remember it. And I think it's ordinariness as part of the extraordinariness. I think, you know, to see those scenes in those places.
I wonder whether we have any sound from any of our cameras there as the cortege makes its way through Edinburgh. Whether we just get a sense of what the crowd is or isn't saying, doing.
Hi.
Si mommy, uy.
The stages of this journey. Very moving watching.
We'll have the opportunity now, tomorrow, of expressing our thanksgiving for her life in St Giles.
Level, I suppose, how much the Queen would put you at your ease when you entered the room, despite the inevitable formality surrounding her. I think everyone has said, once you are actually in her presence, we forget that, she was remarkably easy to talk to. Would you say that was your experience?
Absolutely. She was the Queen, yes, you knew that, and there was a certain respect for Her Majesty, but absolutely had you right at your ease from the get-go. She was quite a remarkable lady.
Thank you so much for your remembrances and for your time here on BBC News. Thank you. That's right, Reverend Dr. Ian Greenshields, the moderator. Well, I don't even know how many deep those crowds are. Just people as far as the eye can see as this cortege makes its slow final procession through the streets of Edinburgh. And the Queen's coffin will rest there in St Giles Cathedral for 24 hours.
This is the capital of one of her kingdoms,
to which she's returning the last time. And I think, I mean, it's almost become a cliche, people saying, I'm here because of the history, but why not? It is an age passing, and such a shy person to command such loyalty and love. What is actually a tribute to her shyness, and I think to her Christian faith. I mean, it's not for him to say, but I'm sure she greatly enjoyed meeting the Dr. Ian Greenshields. Her professional duties brought her up with a number of classes of men and women, men of politics, and men of philanthropy, men and women of philanthropy, and the women of politics. But it was always said that she and the Duke of Edinburgh, who did enjoy a good philosophical argument, loved to talk with men and women of God, and to discuss the faith that both of them, the personal faith that both of them had, and which we heard the new King Charles expressed so eloquently, talking about his mother and father now being joined in heaven.
Let's just hear a little of the crowd again, shall we?
Look at the crowd.
Again, plenty of clapping as this slow procession makes its way. Apologies, I'm slightly jumping ahead of myself because of course the cortege is taking the Queen to the Palace of Holyrood House. That will be its final destination this afternoon, but of course ultimately the Queen will lay at rest at St Giles Cathedral, the cathedral we've mentioned many times today, and that is where people will be able to pay their respects. But at the moment, the cortege wending its way to the Palace of Holyrood House.
That really was the Royal Mile today, wasn't it?
The Royal Mile in every sense.
Yes.
Yes.
It's also something you watch that people are clapping very politely, but it's like people will think, how do you respond to a funeral? People aren't going to cheer or shout, or there's a sort of ripple of polite applause.
There is, isn't there?
People want to reflect on it.
Let's hear a little more of that, I think.
I love the
Sa Edinburgh pa lang eh.
Look at that crowd.
Grabe sa sakyan mo, pagpaparte ka kinis ba?
Imagine ka dyan ang tao from the start. Dad, 4:30 na dad.
Oo. Lasing ko pa man.
You better don't tell Sophie.
Ako sa katedral yata.
Yeah.
Katedral yata mami. But siguro yung iuna ako. 6 hours sila. Yung mga nagka-camping sa bago. Coffee. Na sila.
As the Queen's coffin is taken inside.
Yan tuloy sila mucho.
Ay, kasama pala si ano dyan. Si Anne. Princess Anne.
Yung isa sa liwa ang paa. Yung sa likod.
And Prince Edward. The Queen's children.
So she now has 3 of her children with her and Prince Charles. King Charles.
Si Prince Edward andyan.
Yes, the Princess
Prince
Royal
Edward.
and her husband made that journey with the cortege, staying with her mother throughout that final journey from Balmoral to Edinburgh. And now, again, seeing her 3 children, it reminds us perhaps of those scenes we saw less than 24 hours ago, I think, outside Balmoral, as members of the royal family came out to thank the well-wishers, to look at the flowers, to read all the messages, and we saw those very, very moving images of some of the members of the royal family visibly upset. They had lost a loved one. So easy to forget that Princess Beatrice and Eugenie, for example, who were very, very tearful as they looked at all the tributes that had been left. They had lost their granny. The Prince of Wales, the new Prince of Wales, he's issued that very moving statement talking about how he has lost a grandmother. Every shot where we remember that there are children and grandchildren who have lost someone.
Diyan pala ginaya ng mga India ang marching. Pwede nyo mag-march ang India eh. Taas ang kamay.
Look at that.
Robert Lacey, who's been with me here throughout the day, you studied history, you write about royal history, but we have not seen these scenes before, and we may not again.
Well, we certainly haven't seen them before, and I think maybe what's totally unique about
I've never
today's
seen this one before, Dad.
It's never happened before.
Starting as Sean said with the small, humble church and finishing now in the grandeur of Edinburgh. But it was thanks to the helicopter, which had to take a break halfway through. That's what's unique. As we remarked earlier, other monarchs have died away from the capital, reminders of the United Kingdom we live in. As the generations have gone by, they've been from Queen Victoria, who was just whisked up by train and taken to Windsor, to George V and George VI.
More elite was now King Charles III. And you can see how beautifully choreographed these moments of pageantry were, exactly as you would expect. And they contrasted beautifully, I think, the careful and measured way in which these formal parts of the occasion were carried out alongside all those people who'd come with young children, with their parents, generations of family lining the route, listening to the Lord Lion as he proclaimed King Charles III.
Of blessed and glorious memory, by whose decease the crown of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland is solely and rightfully come to the Prince Charles Philip Arthur George.
There was a 21 gun.